Most people who use Claude Code are doing it blind. They are typing prompts, getting results, and having no idea what is actually happening under the hood. And that is fine for simple tasks. But the moment you want to do anything serious with it, build something real, run automations, handle complex projects, you keep hitting walls and you do not know why. And the reason is almost always the same. You are missing the vocabulary. So today, I'm going to give you the 10 terms that change everything. Learn these and you will immediately understand Claude Code at a level that most people never reach. Term 1, tokens. This is the most important one to understand first because it affects literally everything else. A token is not a word. It is a chunk of text, roughly 3 to 4 characters. When you send a message, Claude reads it in tokens. When it replies, it writes in tokens. Your plan has a token limit, which means it has a cap on how much reading and writing Claude can do per session. The longer your conversation gets, the more tokens get used on every message because Claude rereads the entire chat history each time. That is why sessions feel expensive fast if you are not careful. Term 2, context window. Think of this as Claude's working memory. It is the total amount of text Claude can hold in its head at any one time, including everything you have sent, everything it has replied with, and any files you have uploaded. Claude's context window on the current models goes up to 1 million tokens. That sounds huge, but in a long session with big files, it fills up faster than you expect. When it fills up, Claude starts forgetting the older parts of the conversation, which is when things go wrong. Term 3, CLAUDE.md. This is the file that gives Claude its memory for your project. Every time you start a Claude Code session in a folder, it reads the CLAUDE.md file in that folder first before anything else. Whatever you put in there, your project rules, your coding style, the things Claude should always do or never do, it loads that automatically on every single session. Think of it as the briefing you give Claude before work starts. Without it, Claude comes in blind every time. With it, Claude already knows your project before you type a word. Keep it short though. Everything in there costs tokens on every message. Term 4, skills. A skill is a saved instruction pack that Claude loads when it needs to do a specific type of task. You create a skill.md file, put your instructions in it, drop it in the right folder, and from then on, Claude knows how to do that task your way without you explaining it every single time. So if you always want Claude to build websites in a specific style, you write that once in a skill and it applies forever. Skills are what turn Claude from a generic assistant to something that actually knows how you work. Term 5, MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. By default, Claude lives inside a box. It can read and write text, but it cannot touch anything outside the chat. MCP is the set of connections that lets Claude reach outside and actually do things in the world. Connect Claude to GitHub and it can push code. Connect it to your database and it can run queries. Connect it to an image generator and it can create visuals. MCP is essentially the bridge between Claude and every other tool you use. Without it, Claude is smart but isolated. With it, Claude becomes an agent that can operate across your entire stack. Term 6, subagents. When you give Claude a big, complex task, sometimes one Claude is not enough to handle everything efficiently. So Claude Code can spin up smaller, separate versions of itself, each with their own context, their own tools, their own focus, and delegate different parts of the task to them. Those are subagents. One subagent might be writing the front end, while another is building the back end. They work in parallel and report back to the main Claude when they are done. It is the difference between one worker and a whole team. Term 7, /commands. These are shortcuts you type directly into Claude Code starting with a /. They trigger specific actions instantly without writing a full prompt. Clear wipes the conversation history to free up tokens. Compact summarizes a long session so you can keep going without losing context. Model lets you switch to a cheaper or faster model mid-session. Bug sends feedback directly to Anthropic. Each one saves you from writing the same thing out every time you need it. Term 8, API, which stands for Application Programming Interface. This is how you talk to Claude programmatically, meaning from code rather than from a chat window. Instead of you typing a message, your code sends a request to Claude's API and gets a response back automatically. This is what makes automation possible. If you want Claude to process hundreds of documents overnight, or build an app that uses Claude as its brain, or connect Claude to something that does not have an MCP connector yet, the API is how you do it. You do not need to understand the technical details to appreciate that the API is what separates chat users from builders. Term 9, JSON. You will see this word everywhere in Claude Code, and it sounds more technical than it is. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it is just a way of formatting data so that computers can read it cleanly. When Claude passes information between tools, when you configure settings, when the API sends a response, it is almost always in JSON format. You do not need to be a developer to read basic JSON. It looks like a list of labels and values inside curly brackets. Understanding what you are looking at means you can actually debug things when something goes wrong instead of just staring at an error. And term 10, agentic workflows. This is the big one. Everything else in this video builds toward this. An agentic workflow is when Claude is not just answering one question, it is running an entire sequence of tasks on its own. It plans, it executes, it checks its own work, it adjusts, and it keeps going until the job is done, without you prompting every single step. This is how people are building apps in a single afternoon, running full research pipelines overnight, and automating work that used to take entire teams. When Claude Code is operating in agentic mode, it is not a chat assistant anymore. It is closer to an employee who you brief once and trust to finish the job. Here is the honest take on all of this. You do not need to be a developer to understand these concepts. I am not a developer, but knowing these terms is the difference between being someone who uses Claude Code and being someone who actually gets it. Every time you see one of these words in the tutorial, in a doc, in a comment online, you will know exactly what they are talking about. And that changes how fast you learn everything else. If you made it to the end of this one, you are already ahead of most people using Claude Code right now. Subscribe to my channel because I cover stuff like this every week to level up your AI knowledge. And next, I'm going deep on how to actually build your first agentic workflow from scratch. See you there.